My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and we will be hosting your webinar today. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, so please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. Next slide, please. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. Next slide, please. DCL Services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Next slide, please. DCL serves a broad client base. Next slide, please. Spanning all industries. Today, we are thrilled to introduce Mark Coker, CEO of Smashwords, and Laura Dawson of Valker.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. Mark, welcome to our webinar series. Mark Coker is the CEO of Smashwords, which is a digital book distributor and retailer. Smashwords distributes globally to Apple iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Overdrive, Kobo, Scribd, Oyster, and Baker & Taylor Access 360. You can follow Mark on Twitter, and he has a blog at blog.smashwords.com. I'm Laura Dawson. I'm the Product Manager for Identifier Services at Valker ProQuest. I run the ISNI registration agency, and I'm managing editor of self-publishedauthor.com. I have been in this business for a long time, mostly focused on book metadata and identifiers, but I'm really passionate about the intersection of books and the web and how digital has really affected book publishing. So Mark, to move into our session, maybe you want to take us through a little bit as to what the U.S. ebook market is experiencing right now. My understanding is it's fairly stabilized and you've got your top players jockeying for space.
Yeah, thanks Laura, it's great to be here. Thanks for hosting this. You know, what we've seen for about the last 18 months is an overall flattening in the market, at least from the perspective of indie authors and small independent presses. We're seeing just consistent flattening across all of the major retailers in terms of, you know, overall sales volume. Right.
It's interesting because a few years ago at a book industry study group at Random House standing up in front of, you know, a group of publishers saying flat is the new up. So that seems to have trickled down into the Indian small press market as well.
Yeah, you know, I think there are a number of factors conspiring here. You know, the first thing is that we've seen exponential growth in the ebook market over the last 6 years. 6 years ago, ebooks accounted for about 1/2 of 1% of the market, maybe 1% of the market. Today, you know, maybe we're around 30–35% of the market, and it really depends on, you know, what you're writing and what you're publishing. You know, romance is probably more than 50%. But we've seen, you know, in this new reality, books never go out of print.
Right.
So the shelves of retailers are becoming glutted with high-quality, low-cost books. And we're also seeing the law of large numbers taking effect. It's simply impossible to continue growing the market, you know, doubling, tripling the market every single year. So I think we've reached a new stability, maybe a new equilibrium between ebooks and print. You know, I'm glad that we've achieved some level of equilibrium. I think reader eyeballs will continue to migrate to screens, but the rate of growth is going to slow. So it means, you know, things get more difficult from here forward for not just indie authors, but for all publishers. The competition is increasing. The supply of books is likely to, the growth in the supply of books is likely to exceed the growth in readership. So there will be fewer eyeballs spread across a larger number of books. You know, that's what I'm seeing. And the only way to really turn this around is to see a dramatic increase in e-reading or just a dramatic increase in overall book reading around the world.
Right, right. So when you write a book, everybody will, kind of. And then you run out of art for a while. Yeah, you were going to say?
Oh, sorry, you broke up there. I didn't hear the last
I said when anybody can write a book, anybody will.
Yeah,
the market
just
will
about.
be glutted.
This is a double-edged sword. It leads to a glut of not just high-quality books, but also low-quality books. But luckily, those low-quality books quickly become invisible and irrelevant to everyone else.
Yeah, we've noticed that too at Bowker. So in terms of relative retailer health, I was wondering if you had much to say about, for example, Amazon versus Hachette argument and how that ultimately might affect independent authors.
Yeah, I've been following it with great fascination, like everyone else. I think what we're witnessing here is just an epic power grab, and we're really seeing Amazon's strategy with full transparency here. Amazon is really religious about providing its customers the lowest possible price for everything that they sell. And they're religious about lowering the prices of everything that they sell on a consistent basis. And that's completely at odds with what the large publishers want. The large publishers don't want their books treated as interchangeable commodities. Books are not paper clips. And so what we're seeing here is this epic fight over the future of ebooks specifically, and ebook pricing. Who gets to control the pricing, and where does the margin go? Do publishers deserve the right to set their own prices? Do they deserve to receive 70% of the list price? Or does Amazon deserve to receive a greater share of the list price and more flexibility over pricing? And so that's what this battle is about. When the contract negotiations between these two companies first broke out, I think a lot of indie authors concluded that it had nothing to do with them. But it really has everything to do with indie authors. Publishers are suppliers to Amazon. Amazon puts squeeze on all of their suppliers no matter what you sell. Indie authors are suppliers of Amazon, and indie authors are increasingly important suppliers of Amazon. Amazon's very committed to their KDP platform, and they're very committed to pursuing exclusivity with all the indie authors that they work with. So it's really only a matter of time before the squeeze hits the indie authors, and we've already seen signs of that. I mean, Amazon launched KDP Select, their exclusive option, back in December 2011, and that then was a squeeze, because from that moment forward, they started giving advantage to the exclusive authors who played by their rules, and they began disadvantaging the authors who refused to go exclusive. And now with Kindle Unlimited, we're seeing this manifested in even harsher light, where Amazon controls what the authors earn for every single qualified read. And if you're an indie author pricing your book at $3.99, you're going to earn less for every qualified read through Kindle Unlimited than you would by selling the book at retail. And it's a completely different model when you look at the other competing subscription services like Scribd and Oyster, where they basically pay you full retail price.
I just got some interesting news, actually. Amazon has won the right to administer the .book domain. So that's another way that they are exerting control over the book industry. No one else has the right to that domain.
Yeah, it remains to be seen if that becomes a viable, critical, strategic domain. If it does, then Amazon's just gained another great advantage.
Exactly. Moving on to Apple, we know, of course, that they are really great at creating these wonderful devices that everybody loves. In terms of the content that we consume through those devices, what's your sense about whether or not Apple about ebooks? When Steve Jobs released the iPad initially, or before he released the iPad, he said, oh, nobody reads books anymore. And then the iPad came out and he was making all these deals with publishers.
Right, right. Well, I never had the privilege of speaking with Steve Jobs about his comments and what they really meant. Maybe it was just a great diversionary tactic so that people didn't pay attention to Apple as they were building their ebook strategy. You know, when Apple first launched their ebook store in 2010, you know, I think a lot of publishing industry people were critical of their launch and really questioned their commitment to books. But, you know, we've been working very closely with Apple since day one of the iBook store. And, you know, I can tell you that they are entirely committed to this market, and they plan to do for books what they did for music. They want to be number one, and they're not going to rest until they are number one. They've certainly made incredible progress over the last few years. It appears that they are now the world's second largest global seller of ebooks. They're operating in 51 countries around the world, so they've quickly expanded their global reach faster than, you know, certainly Amazon and many other players. So they're a serious contender, and they have a real advantage here in the marketplace in that they own the device. They own very precious real estate that is used by hundreds of millions of potential readers.
Yeah, even with the Nook and Kindle apps, you know, notwithstanding, the fact that they own the device is a really huge deal.
Yeah, it gives them the ability to guide readers into their store. With the launch of iOS 8 recently, for the first time ever, Apple bundled their iBooks app came pre-installed on the home screens of all the device users. And when they did that, we saw you know, quite a big jump in downloads, especially in those first few weeks.
That's fantastic. So Google is also in this market, and of course Google is in just about every market. But I don't get the sense that they are as serious about their Google Play Store as Apple is about the iBook Store and iTunes.
You know, Google is a mystery to me. And I might not even be the best person to talk about them because we don't have a deal with them. We've definitely had negotiations with them over the last 4 or 5 years. But they certainly see the market quite a bit differently than the mainstream retailers do, and basically all the other players. They face some big challenges. You know, number one, they really don't have a model that works well with distributors and aggregators. I don't know that they thought that through all the way, whereas every other major retailer knows how to work with the distributors and the aggregators to onboard a lot of books very quickly. Number two, they are opponents to the agency model. They always have been, and they do not give authors and publishers the ability to set their own prices. This has caused a large percentage of the indie author community to avoid listing their books at Google Play because Amazon will price match if the Google prices drop below the prices at Amazon. So that's I think that's had a chilling effect on the adoption of Google Play, and I think that's unfortunate. I think, you know, I would love to see Google Play become a viable, successful retail option for all authors. We would certainly love to work with Google Play and supply them with, you know, over 250,000 books. You know, we're ready to supply those books to them today, but they're just not quite set up to take these books on.
Let's talk about Barnes & Noble a little bit. When Borders collapsed a couple of years ago, there were sort of two perspectives on Barnes & Noble. One was, okay, another competitor out of the way, and the other was, oh, that's a leading indicator that Barnes & Noble's not going to be around so long either. Do you get a sense, they've just launched this Nook print program yesterday.
Right.
Do you get a sense that they're viable?
Well, you know, people in the industry have been questioning Barnes & Noble's viability, you know, for the entire 6 years that I've been in this business. And, you know, with the law, started questioning their viability even more. They certainly have had some missteps, but I think they don't get the credit that they deserve. They were really smart about making the transition from a print, you know, brick and mortar centric business model to a digital model. They've done really well with their store. They remain one of our largest outlets for our books. You know, before the call, I took a look at our sales through Barnes & Noble for the first 9 months of this year and compared them to the sales from last year. Now, keep in mind that last year was an all-time record for us through Barnes & Noble. It was a fantastic year for Barnes & Noble, and this was all during the time that people were saying Barnes & Noble's dead. They weren't dead. And this year, our sales at Barnes & Noble remain really strong. So our sales there for the first 9 months of this year are down only 2.5%. Barnes & Noble is outperforming our other retailers. So, you know, people shouldn't write them off.
Right.
Now, they still have some significant challenges ahead of them. They still need to continue making this transition from print to digital, from a print to digital business. They still need to continue to maintain and improve their store, and you know, it remains to be seen how successful their partnership will be with Samsung and the devices now that they're out of the device business.
Right.
But you know, I certainly haven't seen any downside yet, although it's too early to tell how that transition is going. You know, my hope is that their brick and mortar business remains successful because it's a powerful driver of readers toward their digital store. They have an advantage over just about every other player by having that physical space, that ability to meet with readers face-to-face and encourage them to migrate over to the digital platform. So I'm hopeful that they will continue to be a viable player for many, many years to come.
One thing I think a lot of people have forgotten is that Barnes & Noble was actually the first major retailer who got into ebooks. They beat Amazon to market in, God, I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was the year 2000 when they started selling the Rocket ebook.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's my time. Yeah, and they acquired FictionWise very early on, and FictionWise was an early pioneer in ebook retailing.
Yeah, so it's worth considering. I mean, Amazon has deep pockets, but there can be some advantages to running lean. You know, Barnes & Noble has a lot more experience with. In terms of potential opportunities for Smashwords, are you distributing to Kobo? I'm forgetting.
Oh yes, we've been distributing to Kobo since 2009, 2010.
Okay, great. And I know you
we're probably their largest supplier by title count.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think we're supplying them over 250,000 titles.
The great thing about Kobo is that they're so global.
Right.
They're not U.S. based; they're Canadian.
Yeah, Kobo, to their credit, was international from day one. I think they're operating in over 140 different countries, and they've got local language stores in probably at least a few dozen of those.
And what about libraries? You distribute to libraries as well?
Yeah, we've been pursuing the library market for the last 2.5 years or so. You know, I'm optimistic about the library market, but you know, I've been frustrated by the rate of growth in that market. The big challenge is that it's really difficult to get ebooks into libraries. The libraries have completely different ingestion systems for books than traditional retailers do. completely different language for categorization.
Right.
And it creates a lot of friction. We're also seeing that, I think it's fair to say that, there's, when we look back 6 years ago to when we first launched Smashwords, there was a lot of stigma associated with self-publishing in the author community and in the publishing community and in the library community. And what we've seen over the last 6 years is that stigma is quickly evaporating among authors and among the publishing industry. But the stigma, I think, is still a couple years behind on that curve in the library market. There's still a lot of librarians that that haven't yet gotten on board with the indie revolution.
Right.
And some of the major players in ebook distribution in the market haven't yet gotten fully on board yet as well. Like, for example, in the last year we signed a distribution agreement with Overdrive, and we remain really excited about this deal. Yet, Overdrive doesn't list self-published books in their main catalog. They're making it difficult for librarians to discover these books. And keep in mind, these books are books that are hitting the New York Times bestseller list every single week, hitting the top 10 bestsellers at all the major retailers. These are books that patrons want to read, yet the major supplier of ebooks to libraries hasn't yet fully gotten on board with it. Go ahead.
I think some of this might be due to the volume issue we were talking about before. There's just so much that curating it effectively is quite challenging.
Yeah, it definitely is. I can say that every single major retailer that we've worked with has been stressed and challenged by the volume coming from Smashwords. I'd like to think that we've made all of our retail partners better and stronger because they now have the capability to process thousands of books coming from us every single week, something that probably none of them could have done 5 years ago. So all of the retailers have continued to grow their capabilities along with the growth of Smashwords. So yeah, I think Overdrive, it'll take them some time to develop the systems to easily ingest this massive quantity of books, and also to build automated curation systems similar to what the retailers have, so that they can take these books on. And curation is kind of a funny word. If you look at curation at the major retailers, they rely a lot on automation for curation. So
exactly.
They've got algorithms that can accurately track and reflect the how readers are responding to books, and then curate the books that way. I don't think Overdrive yet has all of those systems yet in place.
Right. No, and it's a big challenge because librarians themselves want to pick which books they make available to their patrons, so that curation process slows things down considerably. Whereas at a bookstore, they're just interested in moving as much content as they can, and it doesn't have to address a certain audience. So
yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, the retailers are really ahead of the curve here. The retailers rely on customers to curate the content, whereas librarians are accustomed to carefully curating and selecting the content, choosing content based on reviews that are appearing in legitimate trade magazines. But I'm seeing a lot of signs within the library community that minds are opening about new ways of curation. Like, for example, at Overdrive, we're able to leverage our knowledge of the best-selling titles aggregated across all of our retail network, and we share with Overdrive, and they've published within their marketplace recommended buy lists based on our bestseller lists. So
that's excellent.
That kind of curation, I think, makes a lot of sense, and it's an opportunity for the retail world and the library world to really coexist and partner. So I'm excited about that.
Let's also talk about some of the new distribution models. You mentioned that you're distributing to Oyster and Scribd. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about the subscription model.
Sure.
Because it's so new.
Yeah, it is new. I was initially skeptical of ebook subscription services. I think I shared a lot of the fears and concerns that others shared about subscription services in the music industry, that it could ultimately devalue books, and I'm not interested in devaluing books. But when Scribd and Oyster came along, I was really impressed with their business models. I think we negotiated really great deals for our authors and publishers. Our authors and publishers are paid the same amount of money that they're paid if their book is sold at Apple iBooks or Barnes & Noble or Kobo. They earn retailer level margins on their books, which is great. So I love that the author or the publisher is in control of the price, in control of their margin. So and we've now been online now with both of these retailers for about a year, with both of these subscription services for about a year. I can tell you that Scribd and Oyster are our two fastest growing retail channels for our books at a time where the rest of the market has completely flatlined. These two are growing very quickly.
Wow.
So I think, as long as they can prove that their business models are viable, and I think they will, I think that'll be relatively simple for them, then they're going to be here to stay. And I think their viability is largely enabled by self-published ebooks, because the average indie ebook is priced less than $4. At Smashwords, we distribute over 40,000 books that are priced at free. This means that subscribers to Scribd and Oyster can enjoy thousands of hours of reading every month at no cost to the subscription service, and that's good. I want these subscription services to profit from our books.
Well, that brings me to my next point. When do you think is it appropriate for authors to price their books at zero, and when is?
Well, I think it's appropriate from day one. It really is. We've been advocating free as a marketing tool for the last 6 years, and I've been to conferences and people have stood up and told me I'm crazy and how dare I devalue their work. But I can tell you that authors who have experimented with free are earning more money than authors who have not. When we look at our data, we look at our best-selling authors. The majority of our best-selling authors are taking advantage of free. When I look at series books, we have found that books with free series starters, those authors earn more from their series than authors who don't do a free series starter. We found at Apple, in the latest 12-month period that we examined in our annual Smashwords survey, at Apple, a free book is downloaded on average 39 times more than a book at any other price. So free is a powerful platform building and readership building opportunity for every author. Even if you're releasing your first book ever, you can take advantage of free. If you make your book free, you're eliminating the friction that would get in the way of a reader taking a chance on an undiscovered, unknown author. It's a great way for an indie author to get their first reviews at the major retailers, and these reviews are really important. It's a great way to build buzz, and then you can switch to free. So I'm a big supporter of free, and I believe that you should use it judiciously. I think if you're publishing multiple books, and most successful authors do publish multiple books, that free should be part of your portfolio of tools that you're using to reach more readers.
And do you have any thoughts on, there's sort of a new-ish movement amongst indie authors. They're very interested in what they call special sales, where you're selling into certain professional associations, or you're selling into selling direct to book clubs, just more creative ways of distribution. Have you given any thought to those possibilities?
We're not doing anything with book clubs or doing very little about selling into institutions. I think it's an interesting idea. Not quite sure on how something like that would scale.
Right.
Certainly if a large corporation with 100,000 employees around the world contacts us and wants to license the rights to one of our books, we'll work with them.
Yeah.
That would be exciting, and they're able to do that today. We've seen that happen on a very limited scale with a very limited number of authors where people have come to us and negotiated volume purchases, and then we coordinate with the author or publisher to choose a price that works for them. But I'm really not seeing very much of this.
Okay, yeah, I think it's most applicable to books within a specific niche, whatever that niche might be. But the book has to be extremely targeted, and possibly the benefit to the author will not be in book sales, but possibly consulting or speaking gigs or like that.
Sure, yeah, I can see that as well.
We touched on exclusivity a little earlier when we were talking about KDP Select. I know you have some thoughts about that. I was wondering if you could expand.
Well, I've been speaking out against KDP Select since they first launched in December of 2011. I think exclusivity is really destructive to the long-term future of the publishing industry, and I think it's long-term harmful to authors, readers, retailers, and harmful to the culture of books. Anytime an author or a publisher makes their book exclusive at any outlet, they're really casting a vote for all other competing retailers to go out of business. They're harming the rest of the ecosystem by driving readers to one retailer over others and giving readers and customers incentive to only use one retailer. So I think that's potentially harmful. I think it's really harmful for authors to become overly dependent on any single retailer. If you're making your books exclusive to Amazon or any retailer, if you're making your books exclusive anywhere, then you're increasing your dependence on that retailer, and you're harming your long-term platform building at the other retailers. I mean, if you take, for example, the Apple iBooks operating in 51 different countries, those are really 51 different micro markets where the author or publisher needs to be thinking about, how am I going to build my platform in Australia, in New Zealand, in France, in Germany, in Japan, everywhere. And by going exclusive at Amazon, you're not playing in those markets. The authors who are playing in those markets have a long-term platform building advantage over you. And so authors who dip their feet in and out of KDP Select are ultimately harming their platform building everywhere else and increasing their dependence upon a single retailer. And that's dangerous, because anytime you increase your dependence on a single retailer, you're losing your independence, you're losing your flexibility and your negotiating power. So I'm not a big fan of KDP. I think it's full for Amazon. It's been a shrewd strategic move for them to starve their competing retailers of hundreds of thousands of books. Amazon has in their public statements have said they've got over 500,000 books in their exclusive program. Hugh Howey, in one of his latest author earnings blog posts, puts the number closer to 750,000 books that are in that program. So the danger here is that Amazon achieves a critical mass of high-quality books so that no other books matter to them. So that the risk is that they only merchandise those books at the expense of all the other books. And we've already seen some examples of that. Everyone knows that if you're in KDP Select, you have merchandising advantages and discoverability advantages over authors who don't participate. They are punishing authors who don't participate.
Oh yes, I can tell you that as a self-published author myself, I experimented with KDP Select. So what that meant was I had to go around to all the other retailers and take my book down from Kobo and Barnes & Noble and everybody else. So the select window came and went. It's 90-day limit. But quite frankly, I was so busy with my real job that I never bothered to go around and post the book back up on all these other retailers. So it's effectively still exclusive at Amazon.
Right, because their exclusive period automatically renews if you don't take any action. I can tell you that at every single writers' conference that I attend, I have authors come up to me and say, how do I choose between Smashwords and Amazon? And I tell them, you don't have to choose.
Exactly.
You should have your book at both. And they say, I didn't know I could do that. I thought I had to be exclusive at Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon is willfully, with their full knowledge, allowing a large number of authors to mistakenly believe that they must be exclusive at Amazon. And they do a good, and it's not that Amazon is being underhanded. They're very transparent about it.
I know.
At every step of the publishing process at Amazon, they are reminding you that if you don't enroll in KDP Select, that you're going to be disadvantaged. If you want to earn 70% list in India or Japan or Brazil, well, of course you do. Well, you have to enroll your book in KDP Select. Otherwise, you only earn 35% list. They're reminding you of that on every single screen. And so, you know, especially first-time authors who are new to the publishing industry, who don't understand the dynamics of the publishing business, who don't yet appreciate the benefits of having a thriving ecosystem of multiple retailers. If KDP is their first visit when they upload their book, a lot of those authors are going to get sucked into it and never distribute anywhere else.
Right.
And that's sad. It means that the millions of readers that can only be reached at iBooks, or the millions of readers that can only be reached at Barnes & Noble, those readers aren't available to that author.
Right, right. That's right. Yeah, and it's, you know, as I said, that is exactly how it went for me. And I'm someone who's been in this business since 1986, so I should know better. But it's just, you know, they make it hard to get out.
Well, I've got to say, in so many regards, Amazon is just so incredibly brilliant.
Yes.
They understand how to shape their policies so that their policies shape author behavior. Like, you know, Amazon, you know, ruthlessly price matches your books. If you are distributing everywhere and some other retailer makes a mistake or doesn't update your price in time, Amazon punishes the author with price matching. They send you fire and brimstone emails that, threatening you if you don't maintain price parity. And this scares a lot of indie authors. You know, assuming Amazon has 65% of the worldwide ebook market, which they may have, or maybe more, for an author to be told that they risk losing their earnings from the retailer that's buttering their bread, it makes them scared, and it causes some authors to just decide that it's too much trouble to make their books available everywhere if they risk getting into trouble with Amazon, because Amazon is so disciplined about meting out discipline.
Yeah, yeah. It's an issue for the larger publishers as well. Again, because of the volume issue, they're publishing so many titles, and of course, when you're doing that, the metadata can get very easily messed up. You know, the wrong price can go out, or a price change won't necessarily get it by another retailer, and Amazon is on the lookout for these little slip-ups.
Right, and even if Amazon knows that one of their competing retailers is making an error, and that error does not reflect the true intentions of the author, Amazon still punishes the author.
Yep.
And I've had numerous discussions with Amazon about this, you know, because they've caused great harm to Smashwords authors who've been price matched against their will. You know, I had a conversation with Amazon a couple of years ago, and I said, look, you should, if you're going to price match, fine, price match against the prices at Smashwords, because the price at Smashwords reflects the true intention of the author. Don't price match against a retailer who's making an error. That's just not fair.
Right.
And they haven't changed anything, because they know it works for them.
Right. I'm hoping we can move on to discussing ebook distribution tools. At Smashwords, you provide tools for authors. Can you tell me a little bit about the metadata management system?
Sure. So, you know, as a distributor of books, we make it, you know, fast, free, and easy for any writer anywhere to upload a single book, a single file, and have that book distributed to multiple retailers. And then from the Smashwords dashboard, we provide the authors centralized metadata control. So they can change the price once at Smashwords. That price will ripple out. If they want to update their book cover, change the book description, they can make all of these changes from a single dashboard very quickly, and those changes ripple out to all the retailers. Over the last few years, we've built out our tools even more beyond just price management. Last year, we introduced ebook pre-order distribution to Apple, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. And this is one of the tools that I'm most excited about. At Apple, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo, if your book is on pre-order, all of those accumulated orders that you earn during the pre-order period credit toward your first day's sales rank when your book goes on sale. And so we've helped dozens, if not hundreds, of our authors hit the bestseller lists at these major retailers, thanks to the power of pre-orders. Pre-orders allow the author to market their book in advance and allow the author to capture the reader's order at the time that they have the reader's interest and attention. If you think about it, most indie authors are on Facebook and they're on their blogs telling readers what they're working on for the next year. Mm-hmm. Yet without a pre-order, they have no way to capture that order. So
exactly.
Pre-orders are just super, super cool. They are the new best practice, and they're one of the most powerful tools available to indie authors. And it's unfortunate that the vast majority of indie authors don't know what pre-orders are and aren't taking advantage of pre-orders. In our latest Smashwords survey, we found that pre-orders were giving our authors a tremendous and measurable sales advantage.
Great. Well, that leads us to the next tool that you provide, which is sales.
Sorry, Laura, you broke up there. What?
I said that leads us to the next tool that you provide, which is sales reporting.
Right. When you're working with a distributor like Smashwords, you get aggregated sales reporting. So from a single console, you can see how your books are performing across multiple retailers. About 6 months ago, we enhanced our sales reporting, so now we're providing next-day and same-day sales reporting for our top retailers. We're providing same-day sales reporting for Barnes & Noble and next-day sales reporting for Apple and Kobo. So you can easily go in there and you can slice and dice your sales data and see how you're performing at different retailers and how individual titles are performing at individual retailers. So you can track and measure the effectiveness of your marketing and promotion. Pretty cool.
Yeah. A final tool that I think a lot of indie authors aren't really that aware of is price experimentation, where the price of a book is not necessarily a fixed thing, but you just kind of have to play around a little bit and, like we were saying before, possibly give the book away for a certain window of time. You were saying that most the books that Smashwords distributes are priced below $4?
Yeah, they're priced around $3.99 as an average.
Mm-hmm. And that is working for your? It seems to be.
Oh, it's working really well for our authors. It's worked really well for our business. Smashwords authors sold over $30 million worth of books at retail last year. And
wow.
60% of that went into the author's pocket.
That is great.
So the pricing is working. We found, based on our research, that $2.99 and $3.99 appear to be the sweet spots for fiction, for indie author fiction. The sweet spots for nonfiction are quite a bit higher, probably $7.99 and above for full-length nonfiction. Okay. We found in our surveys that a lot of indie authors who are doing nonfiction are trying to price their books like fiction, so they're actually underpricing their books. We found something very counterintuitive, that on average, unit sales volume increased with nonfiction as the price increased above $2.99 and $3.99. Wow. Okay.
Let's see. I think we've reached the end of the deck. Adam, are there any questions?
At this time, there isn't, but let's give a couple of minutes in case in case the attendees have any questions.
Yeah, we encourage folks to type their questions in the questions box. It may be, Mark, that you were so clear.
Well, there's always more to talk about.
Yes, isn't there?
Well, okay, so a couple of questions just came in.
Oh, great.
The first one is looks first for Mark, and it is does Smashwords support conversion for Amazon?
Okay, so I'll explain how it works at Smashwords. At Smashwords, you have two different options for the type of file that you upload to our service. If you upload a Microsoft Word document, then we will convert the book into multiple ebook formats, including the Mobi format, which is readable by Amazon customers. Of the over 250,000 books that we're distributing to all the major retailers, we are only distributing about 220 titles to Amazon. So we don't offer full distribution to Amazon. So what most of our authors do is they use Smashwords to reach all the non-Amazon retailers, and then they upload direct to Amazon. And so that's what I would recommend for most authors.
Thank you. The next question has come in is, I'm on both Kindle and Nook. Am I missing a significant market share on Apple?
Yes, you are. Yes. Well, you know, as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, Apple is the world's second largest global seller of ebooks. At Smashwords, Apple is significantly larger than Barnes & Noble, and Barnes & Noble's big. So yes, definitely, you're definitely missing out on the Apple iBooks opportunity, and certainly Smashwords can help you get there. You're also missing out on Oyster and Scribd, which are the two fastest growing retail channels at Smashwords, and you're missing out on the library channels that we reach through Overdrive and Baker and Taylor. So definitely get your books out there everywhere.
Excellent, thank you. The next question has come in is, Mark, do you have any comments relating to the distribution of print books by indie authors / publishers?
Well, first I should state that at Smashwords we don't do anything with print books. One of the biggest challenges that an indie author faces when they do print is that they don't have access to brick and mortar bookstore distribution like a traditional publisher does. That's one of the things that traditional publishers do best. They can get your book in thousands of bookstores overnight. But as an indie author, you don't have that advantage. It's really difficult. So what you'll need to do is partner with a book distributor, a print book distributor, such as Ingram or Ingram Spark. They can at least make your book available to bookstores, but you still face the challenge of getting bookstores to order your books. What we're finding at Smashwords is that an increasing percentage of authors aren't even bothering to do print, or they're just printing a very small number of books that they can use at book signings. And when we look at our best-selling authors, they tell us that they're selling 1,000 ebooks for every print book that they sell. So it's really difficult to make print work as an indie author. One notable exception would be if you're writing nonfiction, if you're a subject matter expert and you're on the road speaking to large crowds of people on a regular basis. If you're doing that, then it's really easy to sell print books in the back of the room, and you could sell quite a few.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The next question has come in is, what are the differences between Scribd and Kobo?
Okay, so Kobo is a smaller to mid-size retailer. They sell their books around the world. That's Kobo. Scribd started off they were founded around the same time as Smashwords, maybe a little bit earlier, so maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And they were founded as a document upload platform. So you could upload anything, a PowerPoint, a word processing document, a PDF, then publish it instantly on their site. And they were primarily used for just publishing files and documents. Over the last couple of years, Scribd has really pivoted and reoriented their entire business around selling books. So Scribd is a ebook subscription service. Subscribers pay $8.95 a month, and for that price, they're able to read an unlimited number of books. Smashwords distributes to Scribd. We've got over 250,000 books distributed to Scribd. So our books are available in that Scribd subscription catalog. Scribd also sells books, individually, title by title, and we participate in that as well. Although I can tell you that most of the volume at Scribd is through the subscription service. They've been really successful at driving readers into that service, and they're getting great reviews for the service as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you. The next question is, Mark, how well do children's picture books sell as ebooks, and what price point do children's books sell best at?
Okay, well, children's picture books can be a challenge. When we look at this rapid growth in the ebook market, most of these books that are selling across all of these different retailers are what we call reflowable books, which means that the text can reflow and shapeshift across any screen size. If you're doing a children's picture book, you need to ask if those pictures would render well on a small screen. Would they be visible on like an iPhone, for example? And so, I think the children's book market has not fully benefited from the ebook revolution. I mean, some authors have. It takes careful formatting and design to create a children's picture book that you can distribute with maximum distribution, but it is possible. In terms of price point for the picture book, it really depends on the book, depends on the length, depends on your platform, depends on a lot of different things. I would encourage you to experiment. So, experiment with $2.99 or $3.99. If the book's really short, experiment with a lower price. If it's longer, a higher price. Try out the different price points. That's one of the neat things about self-publishing, is that you can change the price anytime you want and then see how the marketplace reacts.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. The next question is, how do you get out of KDP Select if you're signed up for it? I'm only into it by 30 days. Okay.
All right. Well, that's a wonderful question. Log into your KDP Select platform and just double check when your exclusivity period ends, and then mark it on your calendar. Mark it on your paper calendar. Yellow highlighter. Escape from KDP Select. So just be sure to log back in and opt out of it when the time comes.
Thank you. Next question is, do I use the same ISBN when I upload to Smashwords and then Amazon?
All right, that's a great question, so thanks for that question. First, it's important to know that an ISBN is not necessary for Amazon.
That's right.
And yeah, if you want to follow Bowker's recommended best practices, and I encourage you to do so, Bowker recommends that each unique sellable format have its own ISBN. At Smashwords, we distribute only the EPUB format, whereas at Amazon, you're selling the format called MOBI or KF8. So you should not use the same ISBN at Smashwords that you use at Amazon. Laura, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah. As you mentioned, Amazon doesn't require ISBNs, and they for any of their products actually, and for ebook products specifically, even if it has an ISBN specifying that it's the KF8 or MOBI version, they don't display ISBNs on their web pages for ebooks. They still do for print books, but not for digital. However, it depends on your workflow. It's not just Bowker who makes the recommendation of one ISBN per format. It is the ISBN international agency who is the one that maintains the standard and pretty much determines what the rules ought to be and what the best practices ought to be. Larger publishers are continuing to adhere to those best practices by assigning a separate ISBN to each format, but that's because that's how their databases are set up. Their databases use the ISBN to differentiate this book is not that book, is not this other book. So this large print is not this paperback, is not this ebook. You know, is not this EPUB file, is not this Kindle book. So, you know, from their point of view, it makes sense because that's how they're distinguishing all of their inventory. If you're a smaller publisher, an indie publisher, you know, it depends on how you're tracking the information associated with your books. You know, obviously, it helps your book become more discoverable when that ISBN is out there on the web. Google really likes ISBNs, you know, to create rich snippets and knowledge graphs and all the other stuff they do. But, you know, it is not required at Amazon. And if you're only selling a single title and you've got an EPUB format and you've got a Mobi format, you'll probably only be assigning an ISBN to the EPUB format.
Great, thank you both. The next question is, do I have to take down my Nook format to go with Smashwords? Sorry.
Definitely not. You should be at Nook. If you're already publishing at Nook, you can keep your book there. However, if you want to consolidate your distribution with Smashwords, that's certainly an option. At Smashwords, the author or the publisher is in complete control of their book. We don't require exclusivity. We don't have an exclusivity option. We give you full control over the distribution channels that you reach. So if your books are already at one of these retailers, you can simply opt out of those channels at Smashwords. Although we're seeing a lot of authors are making the decision to consolidate their distribution with us and to remove their books from the direct platforms and supply those books through us. So it's your option. You can do one, the other, or both.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is, can you tell us what features you have that are better than Bookbaby?
Well, so
I read it
Bookbaby.
word for word.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. Bookbaby is a competitor to Smashwords. If you want a service that's going to answer their phone, you can go with Bookbaby. But beyond that, I think they're a legitimate service. They're not going to rip you off. I don't have anything negative to say about them. All I can say is that I think Smashwords provides a superior platform, gives you more control, more flexibility. Broader distribution network. We've got a lot of really interesting tools that you won't find anywhere else. It's somewhat unusual for an ebook distributor to operate their own bookstore, but we've been operating our own bookstore for the last 6 years. We sell a fair number of books on our bookstore. We offer some fun tools that help you sell books on our store. We have something called the Smashwords Coupon Manager that allows you to create custom coupon codes. So you can run custom promotions on your book, or you can give away free copies of your book to reviewers. So those are some of the tools. We let you do unlimited changes to your books at any time at no cost.
Are you there?
Hello?
Are we still connected?
I am.
All right, I hear you. Do we still have Laura?
I don't think so, but how about Mark? I have 2 more questions if you
Okay.
finish this off.
Sure.
So were you finished with your last one?
Yeah, I finished the last one.
Okay, excellent. The next question is, any comments on the Google Play market share?
I could only speculate, and it would probably be irresponsible for me to speculate because I really don't know. I hear anecdotally that some authors are selling pretty well there. but other authors aren't selling anything. I suspect that it's their market share is small, but growing slowly. That would be my suspicion.
Okay. And the next question is, I'm publishing a small physical board. Let me start over. I'm publishing a small physical board book, and I'm wondering if there are good e-options I could use at the same time. Could you talk about the feasibility of distributing an ebook for a picture book?
Well, we talked a little bit about picture books earlier, and it's difficult to comment without actually seeing how the picture book is constructed. When I go to writers' conferences and I meet with writers and they pull out their picture book and show it to me, 9 times out of 10, I'm able to visualize how they could reimagine their book and make it work as an ebook format, and that's really the opportunity. I would encourage you to go to Smashwords, download our free ebook. It's called the Smashwords Style Guide, and it shows you how to prepare your book for upload to the Smashwords platform. It will also teach you how to create a reflowable ebook so that your book can be distributed to all of these different retailers. Even if you don't work with Smashwords, this book will help you. Once you read this book, then you'll probably be able to imagine how you could transform what you're now visualizing as a print book into an ebook. You just have to approach it with an open mind. There are things that you can do with paper that you simply can't do with a digital screen. And if you're willing to be flexible, then you can probably make it work.
Great. Thank you, Mark. That was the last question, and I'd like to thank both you and Laura for this very informative webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and this will conclude today's broadcast. You'll be able to access the recorded version of this webinar in the archives section of our website located at www.dclab.com. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, November 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, titled Adaptive Content, Responsive Design, and Medical Information, which is being presented by Charles Cooper, Vice President of the Rockley Group. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.